Hey Chase,
Hey David, how you doing?
I'm good. How you doing?
Good.
We both shared a unique experience separately this morning on the way into this building. Can you share what it was?
Yeah, the winds are pretty strong. I almost got blown into the street. It was an experience I've never felt before. And you said similar to you.
It definitely was. It was. It literally swept me off my feet, and I had to kind of catch myself. Yeah. So just a PSA: be careful out there. Although this is probably a bit late for that. But thank you for taking the time, especially with this. Wild weather to be here and chat to me. And the first question I'm going to ask is what does it mean for you to be heard?
To be heard. To be heard is to be seen, to be visible. In a world full of noise, everybody is traveling amongst the chaos. So to be heard is special to me because that's just a reminder of my humanity. And that also was a reminder for me to hold space to hear others and be present with them.
So when you are gifted with the presence of someone else and they're hearing you in that intimate way, kind of what does that do for you? Like how does that help you navigate life?
It reminds me of the human experience, how it's a shared experience. Oftentimes we're bounded by, let's say, grief. People from different cultural backgrounds, when they share their stories or they allow me to have a space to share mine, it reminds me that we have more in common than we actually do that separates us. And it gives me a sense of optimism of what could be if we could break past these lines of identity and differentiation.
So, and what are some of the things that you think as humans we all have in common?
Excuse me, one of the things.
What are some of the things that as humans we all have in common?
Just say a multitude of emotions. We deal with loss. We seek acceptance, validation from our external environments, and mainly identity. Just that sense of belonging. And it comes and manifests in different ways, but when you speak with people, like for example, I was doing motivational speaking and coming into a space where I was amongst professionals and they were CEOs, entrepreneurs, and they were sharing areas they struggled. There were so many similarities with myself and people who I thought I didn't have that strong of a connection with. I realized there isn't that much that differentiates us, and it was humbling to realize that I could share my experience, and people whom you would think made a point of success in life still had the fear of failure, imposter syndrome, and they were inspired by someone like myself.
And so let's follow that thread. So those that focus their time on success and things and monetary reward and perspective of other people, of them. At times they don't end up with the real joy in life because they haven't nurtured the parts of themselves that bring the real joy, which are the human parts of themselves. Does that resonate with you?
Definitely, most definitely. Because what we determine as success is normally a metric that wasn't defined by us. Society tells us to achieve these material possessions, achieve this level of status and comfort in your career, and then you'll be successful. And ultimately, what that does is sets us on a never-ending pursuit of some external validation. And from my experience, I've determined that success is when you're present. And it may not be success, it may be failure, whatever you're feeling in that moment, to allow yourself to experience it fully. And in those brief moments, that's when I feel whole.
So you say brief moments, and to be clear, you mean like being present, brief moments of being present. So that's I guess, what's that balance in life? As you just kind of outlaid, it's like an ideal state, right? To be present, and when you're present, you're really living. You're making the most of literally every moment when you're present. But for you, you only get to be present in brief moments. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yes. it's like a walking contradiction. I can have that presence where nothing exists. It's just that state where everything is just flowing and I'm feel abundant and everything is satisfied. And sometimes I have to come to the external world and there's constant reminders of inadequacy and fear of failure. And so it's going back and forth because you have to operate in the other realm. And at times I feel like I might be drawn outside of my character, but I find solace when I'm able to get back to those moments. So it's just something that I try to maintain as much as possible and just have that reminder that this isn't real. I have to exist here, pretty much dual exist in like both dimensions, but try to walk that line.
So those moments you're in the flow, which is presence exponentially, right? When you just lose track of time. Why is that not possible in, the alternate reality where you have to appear to be a certain way or whatnot?
I don't know if it's not possible. I think it's a state that I can, or we all can achieve, but it takes difficulty because in what we call in the alternate reality, a lot of that is dependent on the opinion of others. So what may be peace and acceptance for myself, the entire world is at conflict with my beliefs. So it comes to just that point of being settled within myself and not allowing the external world to influence what I have built for myself already.
A way I might kind of capture that is an idea, or what I see the idea of freedom as. It's a big topic in this country especially, and really around the world, freedom. And for me, I think that there's a step missing for people, and I believe that people are free to do what they want to do. But as soon as those actions or choices impact someone else's freedom, it's no longer their freedom. And so essentially what you're saying to me is, I'm free to be myself, but as soon as my actions kind of impact someone else's, I have to step back and say, okay, I have to reflect on the impact of that and adjust my behavior to alleviate the pressure on someone else's freedoms.
Correct. Freedom of choice does not absolve us from freedom of consequences. I believe in universal laws and karma. So whatever energy you put out into the universe will be reciprocated onto you. So if you unintentionally or intentionally put harm out there, it will be returned to you in some form or fashion. And if you do spread love, it will return to you. So like you said, with the state of the world now, there's so much uncertainty, so much anger, and I feel like people are creating and sustaining these realities where there's just a lot of tension.
So what then makes a good life today? If we live in the status quo we do right now, what makes a good life today?
What I've experienced is it's going to be to your own measure. What you determine first and foremost is good, because many people have different interpretations of that, and it'll be once you determine what is good, a lot of times you can determine what isn't good for you. So for me, what helped me was detachment. I realized that as I became more mindful, a lot of the things I used to hold on to escape feelings of discomfort or to maintain an identity, different beliefs, different relationships, different things that led me to have a certain identity, that no longer served me as I grow. So once I was able to let go of those things, that's when I was able to call or have what I experienced, what I call as a good life. And it's not always good, it's ups and downs. I think the majority of people who are like spiritual teachers talk about this journey as if once you make that conscious decision, it'll be flowers and sunshine, and it's a constant struggle because we'll go through the highs and the lows. So yeah, it's just about what you determine is good for you and following through.
I mean, I love that. It resonates with me. It's essentially a philosophy on you're choosing what is good and what is bad, and just because an experience is difficult or negative, it doesn't have to be a bad experience. It can certainly be a good one if you look at it in the right way, and that sounds like the practice that you've built. And how easy was it to build that practice? Because looking at the world that way is tough at times. So how did you develop that in yourself?
It wasn't easy. It came from a lot of negativity, and I had to hold myself accountable. I was reading a book on self-help, and it talked about the power of manifestation, how we create our own realities through our thoughts. And immediately I wanted to reject it because I was at a point in life where I was depressed. I didn't like my world that I was in. And so I questioned, how would I create this world if I don't want to be in it? And then that put me down a rabbit hole to make me realize I was creating this unconsciously, and if I wasn't in control of my thoughts, who was? So it came down to rejecting a lot of influences that I've subjected myself to before, holding myself accountable for the harm I've caused others, the harm I've caused myself, and most importantly, giving myself grace for allowing others to harm me repeatedly over the years. And having the courage to redefine myself, even if the world can't see me in a different light, understanding that it's a journey I have to take on my lonesome because of refusal to go back to my former self.
Congratulations. Quite
Thank
frankly, that's to step back from a reality that you've known for most of your life is really extremely tough, and it creates a whole other set of problems, but problems that once you are able to navigate and push through, you come out on the other side and you're just built so much stronger, and you have this opportunity to build a life with this new understanding that you didn't have before. You didn't have that chance. You're born into situations and you grow into situations, and so congratulations to you for realizing it, that you weren't happy, that it wasn't good for you, to unlearning, because unlearning, like to really learn and grow fundamentally, there's a lot of stuff you have to unlearn first, and that's difficult. Because we don't know any better until we know better, right? Until we experience it. So that's very difficult and takes a lot of time as well. So again, like the perseverance, congratulations to you, and you seem calm and at peace. And I mean, I guess, can you comment on that? Comment on that first, and I'll ask another question.
It was a acquired skill, being able to find, it's funny, it's ironic, that peace in the middle of a storm, but it comes from understanding that you are the creator of your own reality, and you can't choose what happens to you. You can only choose how you respond to it and how you perceive it. So it's like a positive affirmation. I repeat that everything is happening for my highest good. So even if I am experiencing discomfort, even if it is something challenging, like you said, try to look for the lesson, because I believe everything in life, we're here on this earth to learn lessons so that we can evolve. And so I just look at everything as a possibility for me to grow. And there's those moments of discomfort, but I know if I persevere, I'll eventually get to a point where I'll be able to level up.
So get to a point where you'll be able to level up. So see, I see it as we're constantly leveling up. If we're doing what you said you do, which is what I do, is just see every moment as an opportunity to learn and grow, and that's a constant level up. It's not like you're not waiting for that big presentation or that email to come through. It's like it's the bits in between. It's the stack ups again and again and again that really make the difference. And so again, that's hard work, but it does get easier and better exponentially the more you build that habit.
Right.
So I love to see that you have that habit, because it's a rare one, really, like that people are really that curious about themselves and the world. So kudos to that. So what makes and not necessarily you, but in the world, what makes a good human, a good person?
I think the term good and bad is overused. I feel what worked for me is those can be prisons, because that's the ego that wants to say that I'm a good person and that way I can make myself superior to somebody else. I believe that we all have our own duality. We have the light and the shadow side we exist in. And what works for me is to understand that I'm the consciousness or the conscious observer that's witnessing my actions. So my thoughts, my behavior, even when I'm not the most proud of it, acknowledging what I'm going through and letting it go. Understanding that my worst thoughts aren't myself as well as my best thoughts. So just going through the flow, striving to be my higher self, but acknowledging that there's gonna be times where I operate at both. And so like that's what's really worked for me, giving myself permission to fall short, because I believe when we do try to fit into these boxes of, okay, I'm good, now that means you have to label somebody else as bad. And that falls into like scapegoat theory. And I believe that is a root of a lot of systemic oppression and these rigid hierarchies we experience, because we all have our own flaws. So I think it's like I said, it goes back to just the human experience and just striving for growth, but you have to juggle both.
So what do you think the loss to people is who aren't striving for growth, who are just kind of in their lives and their routines and just kind of plodding along, saying, okay, everything's fine? What do you say to those people?
I would encourage them to be present, because a lot of time that behavior is, they feel the same discomfort that I felt, that you felt, everybody felt, but rather than facing it, they bury themselves in work, or they might use drugs or alcohol, as I have in the past, whatever it is to avoid those feelings. Or they might just be going through like excessive consumerism. So there's so many ways we deal with the discomfort and feelings that we don't want to handle. But once you do, you can recognize that those feelings aren't you. So I would encourage anybody just to be present and acknowledge it and let it go.
If you could live in another time period, future or past, would there be anywhere you'd be interested, as opposed to here? So it's either here right now or another time entirely, and you get to pick whenever that time is.
Okay. It would probably be the ancient Egyptian during that dynasty period of the rule of the pharaoh, and not the ones where they were depicted as being unjust, going back previously to like Thutmose II, where the rulers were fair, just, and led the whole empires. I would probably reign then.
Say more about that. I'm so curious. So what about that period appeals to you? And can you give me, like, is it the what years were they? What centuries?
I can't recall the years off the top, but I believe in reincarnation, and I believe that I was present back then, and I was a great leader. So I feel that would just be me returning to the throne.
Love that. And how does that sensibility empower you today?
Oh, it's great, because a lot of things, and I'll share a story. Previously, I considered life, I was stagnant. So basically it was the equivalent of me being like a force, and I was going through a circular path, and there's two exits. And I would say one exit, there was a venomous snake where I was afraid I'd get bitten. And on the second exit, there was a large, ferocious bear. And over the years and through different practices, I was able to see things differently. And what I thought was a snake all these years was just a twig I was able to step over. And that giant grizzly bear with all of its massive authority, which is intimidating, keeping me stagnant, that ended up just being a harmless teddy bear. And those objects actually are more fearful than I am. So just understanding that a lot of this man-made authority that we give, that is abused, is just that, it's man-made, it's irrelevant. And like the universal authority and what God's assigned. So that all helps change my perspective as far as how I view myself, how I respect others, and how I expect to be treated.
In 100 years, what do you think humans will think about us, about our generations, about what we did with the world?
That's a good question. I think they'll look at us and say we tried, but they'll look at us and almost have pity, because they'll see all the answers are right in front of us and we still couldn't all pass the test.
I am so impressed by such a succinct and excellent answer there. I really like that.
Thank you.
So what's missing from the world today then?
What's missing from the world? One, I would say compassion, but two, I would say self-esteem. Not the false self-esteem that's equated with materialism, but actual sense of self, devoid of ego. That's what I say is missing.
And what's the path to finding that for our species?
I think it kind of sounds dark, but I think we're on the path. It's the suffering, because the ego's sole purpose is to justify its existence. So I believe you have to go through suffering in order to question your identity and have your beliefs challenged in order to make it through. So I believe we are on the path now, and if you pay attention, you can see there is a great awakening going on. So I believe we're on the right path.
You say Great Awakening. A few years ago I started talking about the emotional revolution. I think that the dawn of the internet and access to information and awareness that we are not alone in the world at all, in how we feel and how we think, and then have 20 years of that, and then the pandemic drop, and the world pauses, and so many of us stepped back and said, wait a minute, this doesn't feel good. I don't like what's happened here. Like I'm just in this, and I don't remember like signing up for it. Mm-hmm. And so Great Awakening, emotional revolution. Like I feel we're in that, and I feel that it is a danger to the status quo, and those that benefit from the status quo are fearful of us waking up,
right,
and getting the most out of life and wanting the most out of life. Does that resonate with you, and just kind of elaborate more on the pieces of that do?
Definitely. During the pandemic, that was the first time that I was able to find presence, and I began practicing like meditation and became self-aware, and mindfulness was developed. So I questioned a lot of my thoughts. Where do these come from? Why do I hold on to these beliefs? And like I said, I practice emotional intelligence, so I was able to discern when certain thoughts didn't benefit me well and certain ones that did. And so that was just a pattern that I continued. And to add on to what you said about the people who benefit off of the status quo, what's funny is they truly don't benefit, because if they were more aware, they would realize they're holding on to an illusion, because that illusion of superiority and power through all of the control of the masses, that's really holding them back just as much as us. So it's interesting, but yeah, emotional intelligence, the emotional revolution, I believe we're in it as well.
Well, I love that we are. And so let me get more in this moment. So what's it like talking to me, having a conversation like this? Is this a kind of conversation you have with other people, or is it something that you never have with other people? How was the experience talking to me?
Oh, it's refreshing. I have these conversations seldomly, but very seldom, because they're on like a deeper level, so you can't have them in everyday conversation as much. And but I knew this was a safe space to have this conversation because this is what you specialize in, other people's experiences. So it was good to, like you said, how you started it off, good to be heard. So this is one of those examples where I'm able to hear and be heard that I appreciate.
I had some very interesting things, and I'll also say that I've never done an interview before during a storm, and for the audience that don't know, we're in Seneca One, which is the tallest building in Buffalo, and you can probably hear the window shaking behind us, and the ground is moving, and we've just been rocking this whole time. And you've just sat there peacefully as well, like I have. I have that sensation, like that's such a once in a lifetime situation. Like I've never done this before.
Right.
Like, what is that like being present and like reflecting on that experience? How does that make you feel?
I have some, like you said, how you shared your experience. I have some life experiences where I've been in the middle of a storm and I've had to be calm in order to make it through. And they say that with the hurricane, the safest spot is under the eye of the storm. So it's just like a full circle moment because I felt it was like ominous walking into the building when the wind almost blew me into the street. And I was curious, like, would you still show up? Would you cancel? Then when you showed up and shared your experience, I knew that this was like a fated encounter.
Well, this is very cool to be here. And I was planning to be out for the day, but I don't think that's going to be the wisest thing. I think stay home today. So with the last few minutes then, I'm going to give you an opportunity to share some things that you didn't get a chance to, or you can ask me a question or whatever you want to do.
Okay. I'd like to ask a question. How has hearing so many different experiences, how has that changed your viewpoint?
My viewpoint of
your perspective on life in general.
Infinite ways, to be honest. Like there's I've met thousands of people in my life from all over the world in all situations, and I took something from literally every single one of them, and not just people I directly interacted with, strangers, right? There's so much you can learn from strangers if you're just paying attention to. So there's really infinite things I've learned, and as a general rule, one is that everyone has such an interesting story, and at the same time they also believe that their story isn't interesting. And that's one thing I can confirm. Everyone thinks their story isn't interesting, but it is, because it's their story and there's no one else in the world that's lived their life. And they have experienced things that no one else has experienced, and that's fascinating to me. And so I love that, and I love stories, and so I love to talk to people and hear their stories. I write stories, I create stories, so I've also just learned about life and about things that have just informed so much of what I do, and of course building Q and building myself, like on a personal level, like I've learned, like most of what I know, I've learned from people, right? Like about how to live, right? Yes, I can go online, I can read books, I can watch movies, but how to actually live, like you learn that from people and life experiences. And so because I've had so many, I've just learned so much. It's just the volume at which I've learned is just phenomenal. And the best part about that for me is I'm 40 years old. I've lived a whole life, and I'm doing this now, and like I've met so many people already, but my gosh, am I going to meet a lot more, and am I going to do so much more stuff with my life? And so it just excites me to meet people and talk to people, because I know that every time I'm going to learn something, I'm going to grow, I'm going to make a new connection, and I'm going to feel joy and feel just like warmth and like I'm getting value out of life. But then there's also very specific things, like I was with my friends Declan and Ali one time, and Ali said, hey, you should moisturize your hands, because when you're old, otherwise it's going to be really wrinkly. Every day now I moisturize my hands, right? My friend Jen said to me one time, we were talking about breakfast, and she said, and asking her what she ate, she said, I eat something soft in the morning. It wasn't specific what she ate, it was like the idea was like, your body's just waking up. And I was just like, that makes sense to me.
Right.
And that's what I do now. And so there's just times that by a million, right? Every conversation, every experience, there's just endless things. But if I had stayed at home, if I had done the same thing, if I had been around the same people, my opportunity to grow would be so minuscule compared to the life I've had, and that's what's important about Q for me. Is I want to give people the opportunities I had, and of course not everyone's going to have the access I had to those things that I had to, I worked hard for, but I was lucky enough to have them. And so that's what Q is about creating opportunities for people to get these life experiences that are going to add so much value to their lives. So I really get almost everything of value in life from other people, and the rest from myself, and just how I experience.
That's beautiful.
Life.
They say a smart man learns from his experiences, but a wise man learns from others. So you've definitely accumulated a lot of wisdom on your journey, I could tell. And thank you for allowing me to contribute to your sphere of influence that you've created.
Thank you for sharing. And the last thing I'll say is that the beautiful thing about it, and what you just said, is I've acquired so much wisdom and experience, and it's helped me so much. Again, I've got another 60 years plus in my life. I think I'm going to be a centurion. I'm not worried about that. I think I'll get there. And I'm only 40 and I've done so much. There's so much to go. And I guess the last message of this episode to anyone is it doesn't matter how old you are, there is so much life to live. And the more you live it, the more you'll enjoy it and the more you'll get from it.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you.